We just saw The Hunger Games, The Mockingjay Part 1, or Hunger Games 3 Part 1, however you want to say it. On this show, I take my friends, we go see a movie, and we review it in the car and have a discussion. The review part is spoiler-free, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're on the fence trying to decide if it's for you, you can watch that part and we won't ruin anything about the movie. If you've already seen it, or don't care about spoilers and that sort of thing and just want to hear everything we thought, watch the whole video because we get into the discussion and we will talk about everything at that point. So, I personally have not read the books series that The Hunger Games is based on, and I always become a little leery of when they take a series of novels and they get to one of the longer ones, or the franchise becomes really popular at the theaters, and they break it into two parts, because I feel like the first part is almost always the weaker of the two, that they kind of add a few things to just make that feel like a real installment before they give you the real climax, the real, finale as it was supposed to. And that's pretty much my impression of this movie as well. I liked the first half. The second half was kind of boring. It just kind of dragged. The first two movies, the first movie was really like a self-contained story, and the second movie was sort of half a rehash of the first movie as far as what was going on, and then everything kind of changed toward the end. There's just like, oh, what's going to happen? And that's what made the first hour of this, I think, really interesting, because the last movie set it up really well, and you jump right in, and they don't back up to tell you anything. They just sort of do this cold opening, and you're there. You're at the end of the second movie, and so I'm not like opposed to this movie. I don't think it's bad, and I'm sure that people that enjoy the series will like it. But I don't feel like it needed to be a 2-hour movie. I think that they did that because they knew. They need to justify splitting it into two parts. They had to make a longer first half and build some more things into this. There is an action sequence that takes place in the second half of the movie that is just, it is so monotonous and boring. They do some clever things with it where there's, you're watching one thing happen and you're hearing a story about something else that's happening, and that's a really cool concept, and I like the efficiency of that. Movies that do that really well, I really enjoy the efficiency of you're seeing one thing and you're hearing about something else. It's like you're multitasking, but it gives up on that almost as quickly as it starts doing that, and then just lets you watch this really monotonous action sequence that's like, just tell us how it ends already. Like, this is really boring. So, with that in mind, I have a mixed review of this one. I think as someone that's not a fan of the books, that enjoyed the first two movies, I would probably prefer to watch this one with part 2 versus watching this and then waiting for part 2 to come out. Because I think this one, to me, ended in a disappointing way. But that's my review. What did you guys think?
I liked this one. I'm a fan of the series. I read the books. The third book was probably my least favorite, and the reason being is because Suzanne Collins, the publisher, gave her about 6 months to finish the final book. And so it felt very rushed. The movie I thought was really good. It focused more on the political aspect than anything else. It was a big slowdown from the first two movies.
Yeah.
I disagree with you on one thing. Outside of that one action sequence towards the beginning, I don't remember an action sequence in the second part.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll
talk about it.
I don't remember much action in this movie. The trailer really misrepresents this movie a lot. You know, even the poster shows all kinds of explosions, and you just think action, and there's almost none in it.
And Catching Fire stayed in theaters on the strength of how action-oriented it was.
Yeah.
It was a fun, like, ride of a movie to go see.
Yeah, this one, the trailer really doesn't do it any justice. I thought the movie was good, and I knew exactly where they were going to split the story. It was the only plausible point whether they could split the story, so the ending didn't shock me.
Yeah.
Had I not read the books, it would have been a very disappointing ending.
Yeah.
Oh, what about you?
This might actually be my favorite one of the three that are out so far, just for the fact that 2 is a very superfluous movie for the most part.
Yep.
I feel like 2's only purpose is really to set up the third one, and I really enjoyed the political nature of it, and seeing the rebellion get moving and stepping away from the action a bit. I felt like it really gave a lot of actors a lot of opportunity to do something different.
That's a really interesting point, because like 1 and 2 could have been one movie.
Absolutely.
No problem. And
it's kind of like Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace.
Yes. Like it could have been one movie without a problem.
But I can see, like, you know, having read the books, I can see where it's going, so I know what the last movie is going to be, and they're saving all of the big climaxes, of course, for that one. So this one was definitely a little slower.
Yeah,
I can appreciate that, and that's the kind of stuff in these stories that I kind of enjoy anyway.
Yep.
So it was really nice to see some of that.
Yeah, and we talked about that before with book adaptations.
Yeah,
like,
and it's tough. Like you said, it's when you're splitting it up like that. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
The way they did it, and I didn't. 2 hours probably was a little long. There's probably some things they fluffed out longer than they really needed to. But, I think probably right now it's my favorite one, just for the sole fact of the political nature of it.
Well, it was like when I went to The Fault in Our Stars, which I had read before, and I went with some people that had not read it before. And that movie, if you haven't read the book, the structure of that movie is really confusing, because it doesn't have a 3-act movie structure. It just kind of keeps going, and where's the ending and where's the climax, and it's really it's bizarre. But when you've read the book, like, you kind of want to see all those scenes, you want to see all that extra stuff that you like. So yeah, we'll get into the discussion part of this. This is our opinion. This is one of those franchises and one of those movies that, you know, there's a diehard fan base out there, and no one's right or wrong about liking this movie or disliking this movie. I think that it has its good points and its good aspects, but I really would rather watch. I would rather watch both part 1 and 2 at the same time.
I would definitely agree with that.
Or given the hindsight 2020 sort of thing, I would rather they made 1 and 2 into a one movie and book 3 into one movie. Yeah. But they make a lot more money this way, and they get a lot more bang for everything. So anyway, that's the end of the review section. Spoilers come after this point. So I like the cold open with she's like, remember who you are, remember, like, she does that whole thing, and you're not sure, you're kind of disoriented, you don't know what's going on, and they slowly unveil the whole underground layer thing.
I even like the very, like, stark title. Like, just no fanfare, black screen, really plain white text. Here's the title of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, that was just, like, that really set the mood to start with, I felt like.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
And yeah, it's a much darker movie in tone overall.
Just saying something.
The first act is really super dark with all the, basically like the genocide of
District 12.
District 12.
The showing of the executions, the public executions.
Yeah. Like, all of that stuff I liked, and I liked that. We were talking earlier about The Matrix Reloaded, and this movie has a couple of similarities with that movie in that it's sort of, the rebellion is in this sort of underground place, and in the rebellion's world, things are kind of dirty and murky and all that sort of thing, where, like, all the bright colors and the fanfare and stuff that you've seen in the other movies is completely gone now. So the movie looks darker in addition to being darker in content. And I was sort of like, I was following along the whole story of, she's not sure she wants to be the hero. She's not sure, like, how she feels about all of this. She's just kind of on the fence. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Where it fell apart for me was when they finally get to the point where PETA gives them the warning. That sequence is the action sequence that I'm talking about. That's the last half of the movie. Oh. Them on the hovercraft going in to rescue the victors or whatever. That sequence was just painfully long.
It was weird.
Weird. I guess that's why I didn't even consider it an action sequence. I was just like...
Well, and I was the reason I call it an action sequence, or I mean, whatever you want to call it, it's the climax of the movie. Like it's the big set piece of the movie.
Yeah.
And it starts out really promising. Like I was really pumped when they started that thing with, he's going to broadcast and he's going to give us all this backstory on President Snow, right?
Which finally,
we're going to get all this backstory on President Snow, and we're going to watch them try to get in. So we've got like two things going on. There's what we're listening to, and there's what we're watching. It's like, this is awesome. And then he'd stop talking for
halfway through, they just
he'd stop talking for a minute or so, and then he'd say something again, and then he'd stop talking for a minute or so, and then eventually they just gave up on him.
Yeah.
And then they got the signal back, and they have the conversation, which, like, Donald Sutherland's best line is in the trailer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen in the movie until, like, the last 30 minutes. And that really irked me. It's like, I don't want to be seeing things that I've already seen from trailers in the last act of a movie. That's
fair.
That's kind of lame.
I typically want to be surprised with the last act of the movie, but I mean, on the other hand, again, you're pandering to a specific crowd.
Yeah, and it's an adaptation of a book, and you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like there's no right way to fix it. I just would have. I mean, if it had been 15 minutes less of that sequence, I could have dealt with that. Mm-hmm. Like, there were just so many shots of just her looking into the camera, like, worried.
Yeah.
And she's very absent from that section.
Yeah, because she's
well.
not there.
She's just, like, sitting around.
I think where they could have cut it was when they were like looking around that weird lab like area, and the lights came back on and they were all blinded. Like, if they had stopped that there instead of coming back to them for like 4 more minutes later, where they were like, okay, now we're ready to get them. Like, if they just stopped it there, they still could have kept up the tension of saying we haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
And then they eventually show up. Like, I felt like that would have been a good.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they even came back to them at that point.
And they did. Weird. I mean, there was one efficiency that they pulled in that I'll give them credit for, which was they didn't show the plane coming all the way back and the guns not shooting at them and all of that. Like, that got quickly explained and was just sort of there's just this menace of why did that happen? What does this mean? But they sort of had to do that because if they made that any longer, you would have figured out, oh, PETA's a monster
even
now.
More obvious.
Like,
yeah.
PETA's a freaking time bomb.
Oh my god! What killed me is, in the book it's not so bad because they don't really talk about it, but when you're seeing throughout the Capitol using PETA as a propaganda piece, you can literally see him deteriorate.
Oh, that was done so well. Like, each different video, he was just like, he was just looking
in
like
the
shit.
book, you don't really pick up on that, so it makes sense that they're like, oh, well, he's clearly a traitor. You can see that he is clearly deteriorating. They're doing something to him.
Yeah.
And everybody's just like, no, he's a traitor.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, when they finally show him at the end, because they have those dream sequences with him like where he gets into bed with her at the one point, and there's another one where he's kind of wandering around. He looks like he did in the second movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the end of this movie, he looks like he lost like 20 pounds or something.
20, 30 pounds easily. Yeah, and you could even see it in his face.
Oh yeah, especially that last one where he had it all buttoned up to his neck. You could tell he had lost size.
But it was really like, I wouldn't call it super subtle, but it was done well.
He and
really cool.
Jake Gyllenhaal are going to get together and do Nightcrawler, PETA.
Awesome.
PETA Nightcrawler.
You know, I've got to say, Elizabeth Banks, I thought did an amazing job.
I really liked her performance in this. It was a whole different side of Effie, from the first two movies. Like, it was a very different performance that was interesting.
They did good. They did good selecting her. I mean, because the gamut of what that character's been throughout the series has really been interesting.
Definitely.
Also, seeing Philip Seymour Hoffman just made me sad. Like, I thought about that through the entire movie. I just, like, every time he popped up, I'm like, oh.
Yep.
Yeah, and what's interesting, too, is that, like, it doesn't... I mean, I know a lot of people wondered, like, if it would feel like he was missing from it. Like, if he was less part of the movie because of his death. And I don't think he necessarily was less of the movie, but I think that the humor of his character kind of disappears behind the fact that you're looking at Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's dead. Because his character is kind of a douche, and that's sort of what makes him funny, but it seemed like they were kind of like, they couldn't decide whether they wanted to like let him be full douche and be funny, or if they just kind of wanted to be nice to him and make him look a little more
sympathetic.
A little more sympathetic. Of course, I can't even remember the name of the movie now. It was so bad. The last Philip Seymour Hoffman movie I saw. That was The Hunger Games 2. That was The Hunger Games 3 Part 2. Against my will. Thanks for watching our review. If you like the way we do these, please like the video, subscribe, and watch all the video and written reviews at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.